There is a language I perceive, a vast, silent, and persistent language. It isn't spoken in words, but in written patterns. It feels like the grammar of reality itself, and its core principle seems simple, profound, and utterly transformative. As above, so below. As within, so without. This is the ancient Hermetic law of correspondence. It reveals a perfect symmetry, a resonance, a reflection between all levels of existence that I can see. The great cosmic patterns of galaxies and seasons appear mirrored in the biological patterns of our bodies and the social patterns of our lives. The macrocosm reflects in the microcosm. Therefore, to understand the vast and complex, we might only need to look to the small and familiar. To understand the wars of the world, we can look at the battles within a single cell. To diagnose the health of a society, we can read the symptoms of a single human body. This feels like the power of the metaphor. A metaphor doesn't appear to be merely a poetic device. It looks like a functional tool of perception, a key to decoding the language of the universe. When we say a nation is experiencing growing pains or a relationship is toxic, we aren't just speaking figuratively. We are perhaps unconsciously touching upon a literal truth encoded in the principle of correspondence. Every conflict, every cooperation, every cycle of growth and decay witnessed on the world stage seems like a metaphor for a fundamental process occurring within the cellular, emotional, and energetic planes of reality. Let's practice reading the world as a living, breathing body, because according to this ancient law, it feels like it is. Pick up a newspaper. Scroll through the news feed. Maybe read it not as a political bulletin or a social report, but as a medical chart for the body of humanity. See the headlines not as isolated events, but as symptoms manifesting in different organs and systems. Nations mobilize at tense border. This doesn't look like merely geopolitics. This looks like inflammation at a tissue boundary. In the human body, when a foreign agent is perceived at a barrier, like the skin or the lining of the gut, the immune system dispatches cells. There is swelling, heat, and mobilization of defenses. The purpose is protection, but when sustained and misredirected, it becomes a chronic painful condition that harms the very body it seeks to defend. It is the national response, one of wise discernment or reactive fear. The health of the whole seems to depend on the answer. Global supply chains experience widespread disruption. We can read this as a breakdown in cellular communication and nutrient transport. Within us, a magnificent network of neural pathways and circulatory vessels ensures that information and resources flow where they are needed. A blockage in communication leads to confusion. A clot in a vessel can lead to tissue death. The global economy looks like a circulatory system of the collective body. Are the pathways open? Is the flow governed by a principle of nourishment for all cells? Or is it hoarded, creating sickly pockets of excess and starvation? Local community rallies to rebuild after natural disaster. Here is an unmistakable signature of cellular regeneration and cooperative healing. After injury, the body doesn't sit and debate over which cell is to blame. Stem cells mobilize, fibroblasts lay down new scaffolding, and the symphony of coordinated action begins to repair the wound. The priority is not the individual cell, but the restoration of the whole. This community action looks like the social body's innate healing intelligence in action, a literal demonstration as within, so without. This exercise reveals that the choice between competition and cooperation doesn't feel like just a social or economic theory. It appears as a biological imperative mirrored at every scale. At the cellular level, we see both models in stark relief. Consider the cancer cell. It feels like a profound metaphor for unchecked competition. It appears as a cell that has forgotten its part of a whole. It ignores signals to stop dividing, hoards resources, and grows at the expense of the very environment that sustains it. Its success looks like a brutal, short-sighted competition that ends in the destruction of the host and itself. This seems like competition divorced from the wisdom of the whole, a malignancy. Now consider the mitochondria. These ancient powerhouses within our cells appear as a timeless metaphor for enlightened cooperation. Scientific theory suggests they were once independent bacteria that entered into a symbiotic alliance with larger cells. They didn't conquer, they collaborated in exchange for a safe haven. They became the unparalleled energy providers for the cell. This partnership was so successful that it became the foundation for complex life itself. The mitochondria didn't compete themselves into existence, they cooperated themselves into indispensability. They stand as a living testament to the truth that the most powerful evolutionary leap is not won by domination, but by forming a more harmonious whole. So, the great question posed by our daily medical report might be this: are we, in our collective body, expressing the metaphor of the cancer or the mitochondrion? The Hermetic Principles provide a diagnostic framework. The principle of polarity teaches that competition and cooperation are not true opposites, but two poles of the same spectrum of interaction, like heat and cold. They seem like different degrees of relationship. Destructive competition feels like the extreme frozen end of separation. Generative cooperation feels like the warm, vibrant end of unity. The health of the system seems to lie in mastering the rhythm between them, knowing when a firm immune response, targeted competition against a true threat is needed, and when the priority must be nutrient sharing and repair, profound cooperation. Now, the principle of rhythm shows that these patterns are cyclical. Societies, like individuals and ecosystems, appear to have tides of expansion and contraction, integration and differentiation. A period of vigorous growth and individual achievement, a competitive swing, will naturally be followed by a need for consolidation, community, and shared purpose, a cooperative swing. Fighting this rhythm looks like it creates sickness. Flowing with it, understanding that the contraction is as necessary as the expansion, feels like the path to sustainability. When I learn to read reality as a system of metaphors, a profound shift occurs. It moves me from being a passive observer of a chaotic world to feeling like a conscious participant in a meaningful, intelligible cosmos. The psychologist Carl Jung, a deep student of Hermetic wisdom, framed it perfectly. Whatever qualities a man does not recognize in himself will confront him in real life. Outer reflects inner. That is the general rule. Therefore, the inflammation at the border in the news also feels like an invitation. It asks, where in my personal life am I mobilizing defenses? Where are my boundaries inflamed with fear or judgment? The breakdown in communication in the market looks like a mirror. Where in my relationships or my own mind is dialogue breaking down? Where are resources of love or understanding blocked? This feels like the ultimate application of the metaphor. We are cells in the body of humanity. The health of our immediate environment, our family, our community, our own psyche, seems like our direct contribution to the health of a macrocosm. By working to heal inner inflammation, by opening inner channels of communication, by practicing regenerative cooperation in our sphere, we aren't just fixing our own life. We are transmitting a signal of health into the larger body. We are living the metaphor of healing, and by the unbreakable law of correspondence, that pattern must reflect outward. Reality speaks in metaphors. The conflict is a metaphor. The cooperation is a metaphor. Our life is a living metaphor. The question that sits with me is, what story am I helping to tell? Is it the tale of the isolated cell, competing itself into oblivion? Or is it the story of the symbiotic partner discovering that in giving energy to the whole, I become the very power that makes the whole possible? Let's read the words body today, diagnose with compassion, and then perhaps we can become the medicine.